at Quatrefoil, especially coming off a couple of years where we weren't able to do this at all. So my name is John Bretnall, and I've been on the board of Quatrefoil for just about a year. And Quatrefoil has been in existence for 35 years now. It started literally in a closet. And so we're happy that we've come out of the closet and we've been in the current space here for about a decade. And live events and helping build community is part of our core mission. And we're, again, happy to see everybody here tonight and looking forward to many more events in the coming year. One thing I want to talk about is we just launched in this year ebooks and audiobooks, so that even if you don't live here in the Twin Cities and you live in a community where books are being banned or challenged, you can still have access to them. So, and one of the best things that anybody could do here for Quatrefoil is inform your LGBTQA friends and family members that live elsewhere about the resources that are available here, so that they can be strengthened as individuals and strengthened as families, strengthened as communities. So, and we have been partnering with Hennepin County Library's Queer Voices for the past 4 years. There's been a few virtual events, but again, we're really happy that we're finally able to have another live event where we have 5 readers here tonight for you to appreciate and hear. And so with that, I'd like to introduce Amanda Green from the Hennepin County Library to come up and take the next step of introducing. Just quick logistical, bathroom is out there. I've got a fob for it, so if anybody needs to use it, I'm going to be over here. So just tap my shoulder, all right?
I'll do it. Do you want me to go first?
Yes.
All right.
I'm Amanda Green, but I feel like Kimberly Hassner speak first.
Awesome. Thank you. Well, welcome everyone. I am so excited to be here tonight. I am Kimberly Hassner. I chair the Pride Work Group for Hennepin County, which is responsible for LGBT programming and outreach in the queer community. So briefly, just as a fellow writer in Minneapolis, I've personally had the pleasure of working alongside so many talented individuals who will be celebrating tonight. Queer Voices is a gift. I know, and that's just the understatement of the year. Let me just start that out. And we've been blessed with writing circles, writing workshops, and now a capstone reading. So I cannot wait to see what else is going to be brought to the table in 2023. So I'm going to have my counterpart Amanda take it away. Thank you.
Yep, so yes, I'm Amanda Green. I also work for Hennepin County Library, and I'm just going to add that the funding that Hennepin County Library provides for Queer Voices comes from the Friends of Hennepin County Library, and we're very grateful for them. And a final note, we have a survey over on your left, and we would like to ask you to please fill that out. We use the surveys to hear from you about other types of queer programming that you'd be interested in seeing us host, and also to advocate for how important it is for us to have that queer programming at the library. And with that, I'll just turn it over to our lovely curators.
Hey y'all! Oh my gosh, standing in front of a large audience! This is so exciting!
For so many years.
I know, literally. Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Oh, hi, I'm LM. I'm like, great, that was wonderful. I'm LM. I use they, them pronouns. I'm LM Brimmer. I've been co-curating with Sherrie Fernandez this program for the last 4 years. We're so excited to be here tonight.
Yeah, I am Sherrie Fernandez Williams. Just thank you so much for coming. Thank you for coming out tonight. Thank you for being with us. We also want to thank the writers who are reading tonight. Can we give them a hand? We want to thank those who attended our writing circles. Hey, you guys can wave your hands and like, Thank you so much for those who've been attending workshops and leading the workshops. You've been leading workshops. You're ready And we do thank Quatrefoil Library for hosting and partnering with us. It is so good to be out of the house. And I'm a person who really typically do not like to leave the house, but I like being here. Yes, absolutely. Let's please thank Hennepin County Library, of course, Kimberly Hafner, Amanda Green, and the entire LGBTQ work group. Yes.
Yeah.
They've been championing queer programming and are just fierce advocates. So we just thank you so much. All right, can we give all of our collaborators a hand?
Tonight, we're so excited to hold up writers Aegor, Josina Manu Maltzman, Beth Griffin, Taiwana Shambley, and Trisha Collopy. These readers tonight are kind of being celebrated in this sort of capstone of all of the wonderful work we've done over the last few years. We've been excited to be actually building some really quality, I think, writing community online, and then this was our first time really even attempting to do anything in person since we've all been through these last few years. And so thank you all for being with us on this journey. Aegor led us through a workshop called Designing Monsters in Queer Poetry, where writers were creating evocative monsters and haunting in their poetry from a distinctly queer point of view, inspired by the city of Minneapolis and the global uprising that became, that happened right here on this street. Josina's creative nonfiction workshop, Writing Unrest, had participants explore the art of protest on the page. Beth Griffin's workshop, Queer Voices for Kids, invited participants to challenge themselves to write stories for children that were more inclusive and more intersectional, and that centered joy and humor. And we need more of that in our lives because, as we know, the world outside isn't always that way towards us. We live very full three-dimensional lives, and we were so excited to find different ways to explore that on the page. Taiwana's workshop focused on writing effective and powerful fiction that asked the question, what use does fiction have in movements for liberation or social change? Right? Yeah. So once you hear Taiwana's work, you'll hear an answer to that question, we're sure. And then a year ago, Trisha led us through a very meaty workshop called Returning Language to the Body, where we were asked to write from the 5 senses and asked to notice if and when we evoke the senses in our writing and notice what patterns emerge. And that writing these senses is an important muscle to build and strengthen in our work. And so in all of these different ways, we've come together to really strengthen the craft of the work, not just share, identity-based community, which is so important, but we're also writers. That's another identity we want to celebrate.
That's
hold
right.
on. For sure.
That's right. And during Trisha's workshop, Trisha shared a verse from Natalie Diaz that we like to share with you. Okay. The body is beyond 6 senses, is sensual, an ecstatic state of energy, always on the verge of praying or entering any river of movement. Energy is a moving river, moving my body. And okay, so I'm just gonna get churchy for a moment, because folks in the circle, I can get churchy sometimes.
You go there.
So, in our writing circles, we've jokingly called our group Gay Church. And for some of us, writing together can feel like a spiritual experience. Perhaps anytime souls are gathered in love and for a worthy purpose, it can feel like a spiritual experience. So you might say that we have assembled a body. We are a group of individuals organized for the particular purpose of embracing who we are as queer writers and to offer and receive encouragement and inspiration. We are energy. We are that moving river, moving us, our body. Okay. So here's another quote from the very same poem. The first water is the body by Natalie Diaz. Whoops. Do I have that? Okay, sorry about that. Okay. Ahava Makav is the true name of our people, given to us by our Creator, who loosed the river from the earth and built it into our living bodies. Translated into English, Ahava Makav means the river runs through the middle of our body, the same way it runs through the middle of our land. And with that, we like to acknowledge the people of this land. We acknowledge the Dakota and Ojibwe people on whose land from which we greet you. Land that is called Kabakam, or the Falls, by the Ojibwe peoples, and Bade Othunwe, town of many lakes, to the Dakota. Especially as we meet here on Lake Street, the center of it all for so long. We thank the Dakota and Ojibwe people and their many relatives for their care of the land, and we recognize their continuing connection to these lands, waters, communities. We pay our respects to them and their cultures, and to the elders, both past and present. Thank you.
All of the individuals we celebrate tonight are not only gifted writers, they are talented teachers, change makers, and truth tellers. And their truths are treasures for us all. And we want to give them one more hand. Collectively. Because readers, we want you to know that this space is warmed for you. Yeah? Yeah? Okay, so first up to share his treasures this evening is Aegor Ray. Yeah? Yeah? Aegor Ray is a writer living in Minneapolis, Minnesota. He was a 2021 and 2022 participant in Tin House Summer Workshop and a 2022 Lambda Literary Scholar. Aegor is writing a book of short fiction about monstrous mommies. Hello, everyone. I'm nervous. So I'm just gonna do some movement.
Yeah.
This is very exciting. I'm very excited to be here. My name is Aegor. This is amazing. And I'm gonna start us off with a little horror. This is not about monstrous mommies, but I think one could say everything I write is, so there's probably an argument there. But it's called Sana Has 16 Boyfriends. And she tracks us all in July mud. She hooks her acrylic into wet red summer earth. She makes a this wide hole to mark her spot, and she says, "Wait for me, and I will come back, baby. Baby, I'll come right back." So we all squiggle in, jeans and baseball tees and all, and shell necklaces and crew cuts and boxer briefs and whatnot. Suits too, and tweed jackets with elbow patches, and brown loafers and definitely thick leather boots caked with mud. We think we are 10, 11, 12, 16 of us. We could be very wrong. Some days our memory is decades long, and some days we are only going this wide. Sometimes we cannot remember beyond Sana, beyond the hole, beyond the mud clenching around our ankles and pulling and pulling. Reaching, we see only the last flash of Sana. Red slit in the horizon line and shiny, shiny teeth before the mud arm twists over our mouth, and we are falling deeper and deeper until we are stuck. Stuck. Here, the dark is really dark. Here, we are screaming and screaming, and all that noise bounces and is remade, like all things, into mud. Into us. We are so deep and down, here all is we. We as far and deep as it goes. Sana comes to visit us at the fancy cheese shop, at the T-Mobile store, at the seasonal fish fry place where we are stinking of old oil, husked by the midday sun. She wears a blue bikini and thin white overshirt tied around her big and sexy stomach. She wears a tank top with her nipple piercings prodding through. She wears a silk scarf that she peels off, and underneath are red lips tattooed on her neck. This bitch is so hot I'm gonna fucking die, we say. The first, second, eighth time, she gets on her knees, pawing at our junk with her pretty painted nails. Oh shit, we say, when she pulls out our dick. Oh shit, when she balances one little finger on her mouth and tells us with her eyes to keep very quiet and still. We are in the movie theater bathroom, in the foyer at the Halloween party, in the Subaru driving,
80 miles per hour, one long, sun-drunk afternoon. We close our eyes, and Sana opens both mouths. When Sana opens both mouths, we open our eyes, bulging ice-white eyes when she stays down for so long. She takes in so much air with her second mouth, holds it. Our knees buckle, and we feel the rush, the most inside kind of gravity. Sana's so hot, we decide we don't care. This is probably why she's such a bad little freaky leaky thing. Probably got made fun of an awful lot, had crap self-esteem her whole life. Maybe she even got it installed on purpose by some back alley scalpel plug just to be dirty. Sana wears a silver hip chain with crystals dangling over her juicy dimpled ass. She wears a green snakeskin printed wrap dress that makes her body jiggle all over like ripples in the water, and we are thirsty. Big booty cutie, we call her when she picks us up from work and drives us to the beach, to the mall, to the parking lot of the EDM venue where she gives us the best hand job of our life. That shit is so good we ascend and see the spirit of our nannies, of our abuelas, of our guardian angels with pinched noses and eyebrows raised straight through to outer space. You're gonna get yourself killed, Ishan, Juan, Victor, Julius, they warn us. Or something else much worse. But nothing could be worse than being without Sana. She traces her finger on our chest in little star shapes when we talk about growing up and our dreams and what we think about on the way to work. It feels so good when someone like her asks, someone so patient and so listening and so centerfold sexy with a mole right below her nose. She washes her panties in our sink and we two-finger the damp crotch into our nostrils, minnowing for a whiff of her. She smells like seawater pussy, moss-covered oranges, and we sniff it real deep, like we pretty much huff it. She tells us about her childhood, and it's regular enough. Baby oil and metallic dog tags carved with the names of her and all of her friends. Hiking up her salwar pants to see her camel toe, frizzy hair and buns. How she wanted more than anything to be a boy. Simple enough. A girl in a pink tufted frock and white stockings wishing she could be knee-deep in murky lake water all year long. Wishing that hers was an adulthood prophesied to run wild and teem like ours. Then, moments eke out like ants clambering over broken glass. Her dad really mad and blood underneath her fingernails. The pain in her head that goes and splotches of oily black on her neckline, pooling from her ears. The tens of crows that hover above her, perching in dead trees when she walks to the library and back, and one still night, she's on the porch swing with her mother, and in the evergreens there are human faces coming into briefest view. So many faces, one by one, like moths fluttering to the surface and vanishing into the flat dark. Who was all there, baby? We ask her, while she's unzipping her pants. We are shivering between our shoulders, and all those faces pop up for us too, all around her pretty head, gaunt, candlelit. Our imagination hollows their cheeks and under eyes, sallows the skin and slackens the jaw till it's mealy. We blink, and they are still there. She shrugs. Guests without a place to go, she muses. Sana loves boys so much, and she tells us, I think I must have been one in a past life, she says. When she fixes our collar, when she musses our hair, when she hands us our whey protein shake with the blender ball shiny inside. The lips on Sana's neck are flushed and full when she tells us how much she loves boys, always has. We're taking a stoner walk around some lake in late June heat, the sun a beating heart trapped in the sky. Sana's pretty feet are so delicate in jelly sandals, in strappy heels, in platform wedges, and her toes are painted yellow with little sparkly orange slices in the center. We have soft serve, we have ice cold water, we have 40s wrapped in paper bags. We are laughing and laughing when Sana tells us she wanted to be a boy, cause look at her. All soft belly rolls and back sweat wafting neroli oil and honey. All shimmery glitter and thigh meat and lips and lips and lips. Sana wanted to be a boy like we wanted to be an astronaut one day, somewhere so far away and anywhere the fuck away from here. Sana makes a flat smile when we are laughing, but her second mouth is posed in a grimace, giving her away. Just beyond her, 2 crows fall from their perches on tall cottonwoods. They trail each other in jagged, arrhythmic slices. They loop each other till they trace what looks like a void scrawled in ballpoint pen. Sana, we say, serious now. But you're such a beautiful woman. Her eyes flash black, or it's the greedy heat smudging her pupils out to the edges of her eyeballs for an instant. It's a whole stretched out second before she flutters her lashes in buttery acceptance of our words. "Ah, baby," she says, and the errant crows, quelled, land together to pick at grass. Sana moves on quick, and we do too. Like happy wife, happy life. Like a little honey makes a fly feel like he isn't sitting on a pile of shit. Both sets of lips stretch into a soft, pleasant smile. Her fingers are in the loops of our jeans as we walk, a spray of insects hovering at the end of her curls. Thank you.
Another round for aegor Ray, please. All right, aegor be writing them sexy monsters. All right, so next, I think I got the order a little confusing.
Whatever you want.
Okay,
People will just go who's
all right, no,
Yeah.
because I got Taiwana up next. Is that cool? All right, so Taiwana is a freelance fiction writer, editor, abolitionist, and teaching artist from St. Paul, living in South Minneapolis. She works to imagine and practice liberation for BIPOC youth in Minnesota, currently pursuing a Master's of Fine Arts in Fiction from Warren Wilson College. Taiwana is a 2021 graduate of Augsburg University in English and African American Studies. She was awarded a 2022 grant from the University of Minnesota, Minnesota Center of Urban, okay. And?
Urban and.
Okay, thank you. Regional Affairs to lead the editing of a collection of short stories by incarcerated and formerly incarcerated youth in Minneapolis. Her fiction has won the 2021 Next Step Fund by the Metropolitan Regional Arts Council, and she has prose poems published by the Academy of American Poets and Belt Publishing. She is currently working on her first novel. You can find Taiwana's writing and learn more about her to support her work at TaiwanaShambly.com. Please give it up for Taiwana.
Hello, everybody. It's always cool to share space with other people who nerd about words. I am Taiwana. I use she, her pronouns. I am a fiction writer from the Rice Street neighborhood in St. Paul. I'm gonna read from a novel I've been working on for a minute now. I've been trying to talk about it without reading the synopsis, and I'm like, the synopsis always does it better, so I'm gonna read the synopsis real quick. The novel is called I Could Be Free Yesterday. It follows the story of Lo Bowman, who's a disabled daughter of the first Black and first woman governor of Minnesota. After experiencing years of ableist harassment from her peers, she decides that violence is a legitimate means for becoming free. The novel explores community autonomy, intergenerational and familial conflict, and the anger of oppressed people. So, cool. I'm gonna read 2 really short chapters from it. This is the second chapter. 2. By the time I was 14, I was long fed up with attacks from bitch-ass niggas like Steady Reggie. It was 3 o'clock in the evening, and my alarm clock had been blaring for almost an hour. Gloria? Mom had knocked on the door and peeked her head into my room. Are you okay? It feels sad in here. I'm fine, I said. Tired. Do you need anything? I'm fine, Mom. A long pause, like a pull from a cigarette. Bunched up under my covers, I imagined Mom's eyes wandered across the room and found the remains of a smashed alarm clock. The screen was cracked and the right side was dim, like someone had mistaken it for a spider and stepped on it. That was my 3rd alarm clock that month. Now, how'd this one break, Gloria? I saw a spider and I threw it. I lied. I didn't feel like getting up. Mom probably blinked before giving me another chance. So where's the blood from the spider? I shrugged. I missed, I guess. And then I peeked out from under my covers and I watched Mom shake her head. She was probably thinking, where did I go wrong with this girl? I wanted to scoff. Mom most definitely could have used her powers as first Attorney General and then the literal governor to stop the violence happening to me. Gloria, I don't know what's going on with you, if you're being bullied at school or what, but you have to learn to ignore what other kids say. Your illness does not define you. If you took your medication and completed your physical therapy every day, like Dr. Rose said, then you'd be fine. You have more sense than be breaking things. Anger and violence is never the answer. Light from the basement hallway spilled into my room through the open door. Mom gave me a set of kisses before walking into it. I'll be right upstairs if you need me, she said, and the light shrunk as she closed the door. Finally, I was alone. The pills seemed to wait for me on my nightstand. I poured them into my mouth straight from the bottle and swallowed them dry. A few began to dissolve in my tongue, which made my face twist in disgust. Lying down on the bed, legs tucked back underneath the covers, I watched little black spots dance on the ceiling. I enjoyed that moment immediately after my attempt. The space between life and death where all my freedom dreams came true. I saw guaranteed bedrooms for disabled people in North End with drawing and writing tools and 8-inch speakers and plump beanbag chairs and sun leaking through glass ceilings designed to occupy from sunup to sundown. I saw brown and toned kids from skinny to chunky and able-bodied to wheelchair parrying punches with ease in a new martial arts dojo on Maryland and Dale. I heard kids at Marydale Lake playing volleyball with snorty laughs and stammered speech. And I heard old heads and kids talking about Black trans culture in Big Lou's barbershop. And I picked tomatoes from a garden at the Maryland and Rights intersection. And when I came to, hooked up to some IV at some hospital, I screamed like I was going to war. That's that chapter. This second chapter, Lo, is a little older. 3. Steady Reggie did too much dancing when he fought. We squatted up in the parking lot, me keeping my fist close to my face and weaving my chin around, and him holding his left hand outstretched as if keeping me distant. He kept tapping his front foot like he was about to kick. But of course, I ain't flinch. I let him swing first, A quick right hook that might have worked on somebody slower or with less fights. And I ducked and rolled and hit him with a left. He recovered fast enough to block it, but stumbled backwards. That's when I started on him. I threw a cross, jab, then changed levels, crouching like one of Big Blue's pit bulls. I threw 2 crosses at Reggie's stomach, cocking my arm all the way back, and he groaned. As I rose, Reggie threw a series of jabs, hitting me with 1 or 2, and then went for a kick. I sidestepped, imagining myself attacking Reggie from a right angle, and threw a cross. He fell on his hands with his back facing towards me. He rose quick as hell and turned in time to meet my left uppercut. I threw another cross. Reggie was down. I beat that boy so good, my fist nearly bounced his head off the parking lot as he curled into half a ball and blocked his face for 4 whole minutes. My classmates formed a crowd and recorded videos, swiveling their phones around like lawn sprinklers. Akita and Curtis tried to push through the crowd with little luck. My bumps were clearly visible. The arm sleeves of my autumn red sweater rolled up to the elbow. But for the first time I remembered since being diagnosed 7 years ago, I didn't care. All this stops today, I thought with my whole chest. Steady Reggie was one of the many kids who harassed and touched my bumps over the years. I kept track of all his questions that never felt to me like questions. What happened to your face? Did you walk through a fire? Were you shot like 50 Cent? What the fuck happened to your legs? Time seemed to slow down as I threw a punch for each question. What's up, Reggie? Let's talk now. Where's all them jokes now? Reggie's nose bent like a lawn chair. Teetering back and forth between consciousness, he didn't respond. His right eye was puffy and closing, a light purple that looked like it would mature to black. I punched through his block, which swayed up and down like a drunk who stood too fast. Boxing and physical therapy be paying off, I thought, proud of my strength. My knuckles were split and caked red black. My hood must have come down because I felt the cool fall air slapping my face. My big baggy sweatpants were scratched at the knees from kneeling on the concrete. I took one sweeping look at the crowd. I told Reggie I wanted to fight him 2 weeks before. We planned it to happen after school where there would be no teachers or staff and only told a few people. But I could see most of our grade were present and saw lots of younger classmates too. They all looked scared. I locked eyes with Curtis. His deep brown eyes were knit with worry. Akita covered her mouth with her hand as if to say, damn bitch, you won. You can stop now. And then I beat Reggie again. Alternated between both fists. I hit him with a hooked elbow, being sure to fuck up all his features from his chin to his temples. I asked Reggie, what happened to your face? And slapped his cheeks as hard as I could like a drum. I stood and asked Reggie, what happened to your legs? And stomped his shins. I tried to step through them and did the same to his elbows. He craned his neck towards the gray, sunless sky and wailed from his stomach. That's all you got to say, Reggie? I asked, balled my fist and straddled him again. This the first time I heard you this quiet, bruh. I spat on him, and a thick white-yellow blob trailed down his cheek. He was unconscious. I wondered how he would feel when he woke up in some hospital. And I punched him one last time in the mouth for good measure. I hoped he would spit out a tooth and remember me every time he smiled. I felt my mind clearing and the black in my vision going away. But I was still angry, so angry. I took a moment to collect myself and I stood to address my classmates. The fuck is y'all looking at? Minus Curtis and Akita, they all backed up a few inches. I glared right into their cameras. Do y'all got something else to say about my literal fucking disability? All I ever wanted was to be left alone. But y'all been emptying me of every good feeling since I was 11 years old. I'm just a zoo to y'all. Always putting your hands on me. But not no more. I've been planning and studying, getting stronger. Nobody ever putting hands on me again. From here on, I'm free. That's that.
Thank you, Taiwana. One more time for Taiwana. Josina Manu Maltzman, all pronouns welcome, is a writer, carpenter, and rabble-rouser. Jo's writing can be found in the anthologies Queer Voices, Poetry, Prose, and Pride, which are available for sale. And That's Revolting, Queer Writing on Resisting Assimilation from Soft Skull Press. Josina received an MFA from Goddard College in 2018. Find more about Josina, to find more, visit josinamanumaltzman.com.
We made it to Friday. Shabbat Shalom, folks. So glad to be here. Thank you to the Queer Voices community and to everything that LM and Sherrie does. And I'm also very grateful to Quatrefoil because I do read banned books, and I'm stoked that you're making them more available. So.
Yes.
So the workshop that I taught was for Queer Voices was writing and rest. So I thought I'd find something in my manuscript that speaks to that angle of how we write about the world we're experiencing. So this is from my manuscript, seeking publication. So all of you editors and publishers can find me after this reading. And this section shows up in about the last quarter of the memoir, which is called On the Level. And it's a coming of age story centered around my experiences as a carpenter in the building trades for over 20 years. And I'm not gonna prep you too much. I think you'll orient yourself pretty quickly. So here we go. On my first day at a new job installing cabinets, the client walked into the house and up the stairs and into the room I was working in, clasped her hands to her cheeks upon seeing me and squealed, "It's a woman!" Later at lunch, Chris said, "I hear the client was pretty psyched to see a woman on the job." We were sitting in a circle, most of the guys on overturned buckets or lunch pails, me on the floor against the wall with my legs kicked out. "Yeah, she literally did a little jump. A woman!" parodied Tom. And he got up to dance in a circle, his hands on his face like the scream. The guys started laughing. It was funny, sure, but I didn't want to make anything of it. I'm totally used to that, I shrugged. It wasn't always so exaggerated, but women clients loved to see me working on their homes and usually said something to me or to the contractor in front of me. I hated that these contractors got points for having me there as if they were doing something special, especially when I learned that I was making considerably less than the men I was working besides, doing the exact same job. The following week at 8 in the morning, was already an adventure. The shitter, placed at the end of the drive, had been tipped over. It was probably the work of some teenagers on a lark, and it was pretty funny to see, but it also sucked. Blue sewage seeped from the seam of the door like blood from the corner of a dead person's mouth. Tom and I stood there, his hands on his hips, and mine crossed, both of us shaking our heads. Well, Tom went over to the head of the biffy and bent to get his hands under it, then walked it back upright. It rocked for a moment on its pallet before deciding to stand. I'm still gonna call Chris so he gets another one sent out. Tom walked to a plot of grass and wiped his hands, then back to the biffy and opened the door. Why, it's perfectly fine, he said, inspecting it. I didn't budge from my spot 10 feet away. Fuck you, I have to sit on it and I'm not going to. That's fucking disgusting. He's gotta send another one out. He shrugged. Fine, call Chris, then disappeared inside and shut the door. I went in the house and started to roll out the drop cloth that I'd packed up at the end of the day before. The cabinets were grain-matched walnut, and when I walked into the kitchen, the wide view of them was stunning, like the inside of a huge tree unrolled and spread across the room. I was proud of myself, even though it wasn't my aesthetic. I knew the level of skill and precision that it took from fabrication to installation, and stepping back to see the results was rewarding. I pulled out my hand tools and got set up to put the hardware on the cabinet fronts. First, though, was the radio. The DJ's voice was solemn, and I couldn't make out what was going on. I turned to the local news station, and I learned another black man had been killed by police the night before. A cop in Falcon Heights, the next town over from where I was working, had shot and killed the man with his girlfriend and kid in the car. This little girl told her mama, "It's okay, don't cry," consoling her mom after her mother's boyfriend, Fernandez, was murdered right in front of them. I was supposed to be working. I was supposed to be putting pulls on cabinet doors while black men were getting murdered for driving. Alden Sterling had just been killed the day before in Baton Rouge. I was ready to get back to work after knowing Alden Sterling had been murdered, so why was this different? Maybe it was the proximity, because before Philando it was Tamar Clark, and before him there were too many lives lost, too many names to list. Was it because it felt endless? Was it because I felt like going to work business as usual was what made the killing of black people business as usual? I looked out the window over the kitchen sink. I could see Tom setting up to work on the exterior trim, unfazed. My phone started blowing up. We got to do something, came the text from friends. What were we gonna do? What could we do? The next week I told Chris I couldn't come in on Wednesday. Sorry, a client asked me to come by and wrap some things up. It'll just take a day and I figured we're at a good spot. I lied, using my subcontractor status as an excuse because he couldn't make me come in. Yeah, sure, no biggie, he said. I had volunteered to be in a caravan of vehicles and drive a truck onto the highway during the morning rush hour traffic. We were to each take a lane, then slow to a stop to allow pedestrians to take the highway. I was in position, waiting for the signal, when I heard that we weren't needed. Somehow, our group of protesters managed to walk onto the interstate at 7 in the morning on a Wednesday and shut it down. I parked the truck and ran down to meet the others. It was exhilarating to see a line of people standing in the highway, behind them completely empty, and in front of them a sea of vehicles. Drivers were angry and laying on their horns, while others lifted their fists out their windows in solidarity. Some just got out and leaned against their cars, looking down at their phones, texting their jobs to say they'd be late for work and to turn on the news to see why. I got down to the other protesters and sat with them, locking arms. It was scary, sitting down on the highway with hundreds of vehicles staring back at us, wanting us to move. I felt tiny, and yet together we were incredibly powerful, facing down all of society, it seemed, that wanted to carry on as if black lives didn't matter. I wasn't fooling myself. I knew that getting arrested wasn't going to make the murder stop or end white supremacy. I knew me doing this one thing didn't mean my work was over and that I could go on business as usual once again after I checked this off my list. These were my thoughts as we chanted and sang and waited for the deputies to arrest us one by one and haul us off before reopening the highway. I was in jail for most of the day and home in time for dinner. The next day, back at work, Chris said, I knew right away. I knew the moment I heard the highway had been shut down. I knew that was you. That was you? Tom asked. Huh. I nodded, shrugging. I didn't want to make a big deal of it. I just thought it was the right thing to do. You could have told me, Chris said. No, I looked at him. I couldn't. That's the whole point. Oh yeah, I suppose. Thank you.
Another hand for Josina, please. Thank you for your activism on the page and in the streets, so thank you. Next up, we have Molly Beth Griffin. Molly Beth Griffin has, hard to see over it. Molly Beth Griffin has published several picture books, including 10 Beautiful Things, The Big Leaf Leap, and Rotor's Rock Hunt, as well as the YA novel Silhouette of a Sparrow, and a series of beginning readers. Her work centers on all kinds of families and explores young people's relationships to each other and the natural world. A Lambda Literary Finalist, star of the North nominee, and two-time Minnesota Book Award finalist. Molly lives in South Minneapolis with her partner and kids. She teaches at the Luff Literary Center, critiques manuscripts, and hosts a free monthly picture book salon. Up front, Molly.
This is terrifying. I haven't done this in a long time. Oh my god. And I didn't know what to read, but then I was like, if I don't read a picture book, no one's gonna read a picture book. So I'm gonna read a picture book. But it doesn't have art yet because it's a holiday story and it's gonna come out in 2024. So that's a while, but also not in picture book land. So I'm excited about it, and it's, the holidays, so we're all kind of ready for that sort of story, right? But we are queer people, and so we understand that we make our own traditions. And I love that. I love that about us. Excuse me while I generalize, but so this is I wrote this after a Thanksgiving where everything fell apart and we had to do something totally different. And I thought, okay, it has two moms. It's a queer family, so it's a queer book, right? But I think it's also a queer book because queer people understand making our own traditions. And that's the kind of stuff that scares those book banners. I think they're scared of kids deciding to be gay, right? Apparently. But I think what they're really scared of is that we're telling kids that they get to choose their path. And they get to decide what makes them happy. And they get to, invent a life for themselves. And I think that terrifies them, people. So I think that's my gay agenda. Which is sort of fun, because I think people get so rigid about holidays and about exactly what has to happen every single year, exactly the same. And my partner worked retail for 15 years, and if the grocery store was out of an ingredient, people would just have a tantrum. because it can't be Christmas without whatever stupid thing. Like, they just can't, the rigidity around holiday traditions is so sad to me, and I really want to help kids and to help families to be more flexible about those kinds of things. So this is actually very short, which is why I let myself ramble, because picture book. So it doesn't have art yet, you have to imagine. It's called Just Us. Every year, Grandma flies in for the holidays. The aunts and uncles drive up with all the cousins. We have a big, big dinner, everybody together. Every year we play charades, loud and rowdy. Then we light a fire in the fireplace and eat Grandma's 3 kinds of pie. That's what happens every year. It's tradition. But this year, the snow started and didn't stop. Grandma's flight was canceled. The aunts and uncles decided not to brave the roads, so no cousins either. Just Mom, Mama, my brother, and me. Would it even feel like the holidays with just us? Aunt Sarah didn't come with the turkey and stuffing. Uncle Matthew didn't bring his extra creamy mashed potatoes or his famous green bean casserole. So much for a big, big dinner. Mom looked in the fridge. How about stew? We can do that with just us. We chopped up some meat and veggies and tossed them all in the slow cooker. While we're waiting for the stew to cook, Mama said, let's take a hike in the snow. We can hike with just us. We bundled up and went out. The whole world glittered white, with fluffy snow blankets tossed over everything. Branches hung heavy. We swished through the quiet air. We came back sweaty under our coats, with freezing fingers, toes, and noses. The steamy, bright house smelled rich and salty sweet, even if it was just stew cooking, even if it wasn't tradition. We ate our small dinner and cleaned up, just 4 bowls. Then it was time for a game. Not enough people for charades, said my brother. But how about cards? We can play cards with just us. He won, then I won, then he won again. Our moms were good sports about losing. It wasn't loud, it wasn't rowdy, but it was kind of fun anyway, even if it was just cards. But then, as Mom lit the fire in the fireplace, all the little leftover bits of disappointment from the whole day bubbled up in me, churned into anger, and burst out. It's time for dessert, but there's no pie. Not 3 kinds, not even 1 kind. How can it be the holidays with no pie and no grandma to make it? Mom got out her laptop. I wrote this before the COVID, okay? We didn't all know how to Zoom, but okay. Mom got out her laptop. We called Grandma, her face filling the screen. She asked why I looked so upset, and I told her. She smiled and said, do you have apples, oats, butter? We did. Check, check, check. Bring me to the kitchen, Grandma said. We'll make apple crisp, everybody together. You'll be my hands. Mom helped my brother peel and slice the apples. Mama and I mixed the topping. Into the oven it went. Grandma cheered on the screen and said goodbye. While our dessert bubbled and hissed in the oven, we wrote letters and drew pictures of our day to mail to our cousins. The letters say in the art, we missed you, but we had some fun. Crossing fingers, we'll be together again soon. Bleep, 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 the apple crisp was done. We ate it steaming hot and cinnamon spicy with 4 spoons straight out of the pan. And it was almost like Grandma was there. It was just us, but it still felt special. And maybe we even made up some new traditions along the way.
More picture books! I love it!
It would be remiss of me not not to name that we're making new traditions today as we stand here, right? Yeah, new traditions. It's really something like, I think that's one thing that's been so special about Queer Voices as a reading series. And the maybe 6 or 8 years or something like that I've been involved in it, I've noticed that it is ever amorphous, ever changing, ever accommodating new writers, new personalities, and new voices to the conversation. So we're so glad that you could be here today to be part of this new chapter for us as we branch towards our 30th year. Next year will be 30 years of Queer Voices reading series. Yeah. Now, we've been at it for 30 years, but we're not that good at having an email list, so you can join. We'll hardly email you. It's perfect. Who doesn't want to join an email list where you don't get that many emails? No, it is. It really does sell itself, because I unsubscribed from quite a few today, let me tell you that. But I'll let you know that, we hope to have some exciting things in store for you in 2023, our 30th year. And we're still developing and designing and plotting and planning what that might look like. But we're excited that it'll mean more online connection and more in-person connection, and hopefully seeing more faces like this. We have one more reader tonight. One more. You've done so well. You can stretch. You might need to shift to the other cheek if you need. I can't sit for that long. I gotta shift to the other cheek. I'm not alone. It's not that interesting. I'll write that children's book. Sometimes you gotta shift. It's never gonna get purchased or whatever it is that happens. Acquired. It might get banned. Oh, that's fine. Anyways, without further ado, our next reader is Trisha Collopy, whose fiction, creative nonfiction, and book reviews have been published in Plowshares, Rain Taxi, The Star Tribune, Working Title, curated by Sherrie and myself, our chapbook of writing from Queer Voices Writing Circles of Yore, and Aging Out, curated by Brian Malloy. She lives and writes in Minneapolis. Welcome to the stage, Trisha Collopy.
Thank you, Ella. Thank you, Sherrie. What Queer Voices has morphed into is such a delight to see, and I don't think really expected from what happened before. You've expanded what we're doing, and you're cultivating writers in a whole new way, and I just so appreciate that. And I also want to say thank you to all the librarians. We need you so badly right now. Thank you for being a lifeline, and putting up with the sort of organized campaign of attempts to shut down voices. Yeah, really appreciate that. I'm going to read a little bit of fiction. Background, this is a story, it's set in the 1920s in northern Minnesota. The two characters are Gus, who's a gender non-conforming person, and Celia, who they meet in northern Minnesota. Celia is from a francophone town in Manitoba, and she's sort of escaping her family. And when this happens, they've sort of accidentally shared a first kiss. And this is right after that. Yeah. As it happens. Gus wasn't sure if what had happened in Celia's room was a terrible transgression. She had no one to ask, no one to confide in, no one to tell her what this emotion was creeping over her. Something tugged her almost against her will. She made deals with herself. She wouldn't look for Celia, wouldn't grab her orders in the kitchen, wouldn't notice her leaving after work with timber cruisers and other young men she met in the dining room, wouldn't notice if the same beau came around more than once. But after work, rolled up in her bunk at the lodging house, what came to mind was Celia's face. Like a broken record, over and over, her mind shuffled through the tiny handful of conversations they had had before that night in her room. And then one Saturday, a few weeks later, Celia said, Well, aren't we still friends? When are you going out with me to the pump house? Outside Celia's boarding house, the porch was empty, cold that night in late October, the sun leaving the last orange glints and gleams of light on the lid of the city, through the bare trees and on the ledges of the highest row of windows. Gus's boots sounded unbearably loud, hollow on the wooden boards. A damp, fluttery feeling filled her chest, an almost painful banging of her heart. She told herself this was a chance to find a friend, a real friend. She just wanted a sign, some signal. She was afraid to hope for anything more. Celia met her at the door in a kimono. She handed Gus a silver flask and winked at her. Fais ce que tu veux. She disappeared behind a folding screen, and Gus heard the scratch of a gramophone needle, then the tinny horns and the low wail of a clarinet. Gus took a gulp from the flask and felt it burn down her throat. The small room was warm and shadowy, divided by the screen and a fireplace and the clutter of Celia's clothes and tiny vials of rouge and perfume that crowded the makeup table. Button me up. The buttons had eyes. Her fingers fumbled on the stiff hooks, shook a little as she worked her way up Celia's pale back. Gus's hand rested for a minute on the warm curve of Celia's hip, and she had to remind herself to pull it away. Celia reached for her earrings. She studied herself critically in the mirror, added and took off a scarf, then a beaded choker. The smell of the room, talcum powder and bergamot, was heady. On the gramophone, the rhythm picked up, the sound of drums. Celia's eyes met Gus's in the mirror. Dance with me, Gussie. Celia kick-stepped towards her, her body loose, heavy, relaxed. Gus could smell the gin on her breath. She tried to imitate her, hands on knees, then kicking out, but her body wasn't following. She was only peripherally aware of the words. I wish I could shimmy like my sister Kate. She shakes it like jelly on a plate. Go 1920s. No, too stiff, you're making it too hard. Celia started the record again. She counted out the beat. Side by side they moved, Gus trying to make her feet kick out. In her heavy Oxford boots, she felt like she was stomping. You have to move your hips. Okay, watch this. Gussie, pay attention. Celia moved, and Gus followed her. She was backwards, back leading. Gus began to move awkwardly, side to side, stepping, kicking. Their hands touched for a second, and an electric shiver ran up Gus's arm. Their eyes locked, only their feet and hands moving. Now Celia was looking, watching. Gus had her full attention. Their hands touched again. They came together, flew apart. That's it, Gussie, you're doing it. The fire in the grate flared up and died down. The damper opened, then tamped down. Celia felt Gus's clumsy boyishness, her desire and the intensity of that was attractive. Yet also, she was in control, and she knew this without words. She was deciding what she wanted, deciding how far this would go. Their hands touched again. Celia fit into Gus's arms in a way that was so simple. The warmth of her, the smell of her, her hair oil and perfume, the smell of her skin. Gus bent forward to catch it and found herself falling into lips so soft, so pillowy, lips like feathers, and for a long time those lips were on hers, and then suddenly Celia whirled away with a startled laugh. That's not what I meant. She turned away to the gramophone and belted her robe, and Gus couldn't breathe. Her hands were shaking when she sat back down on the low divan next to the fire. She wanted every part of this so much. Are you angry? Celia's voice was small on the other side of the room. Not angry, Gus said. Why are you so far from me? I'm right here, Gus said. And then Celia stood in front of her, hesitating next to the divan. Gus reached up and took her small, warm hand. She rubbed her fingers over the knuckles gently. For a long time, they stayed that way, Celia swinging into her shoulder until she finally sank into the divan and buried her face in Gus's shoulder. I think you won't respect me, she said at last. Respect you. Why are you laughing at me? I'm not laughing. And then, improbably, they were kissing again. Her lips were on Celia's lips, and the soft spot just under her jawline, the delicate whorls of her ear, and the neck that arched open, exposed to her teeth and tongue. Only this, Celia said when she let Gus kiss the smallest square of soft breastbone exposed by her dress. Only this and no more. And that small square of exposed skin hummed. But Celia's voice dropping low sent shivers through Gus. Her laugh thrummed in her gut, made Gus vibrate like a plucked string, almost made her come undone. Gus would remember that long after, the fire in the great dying, their movement half in shadows, half in the flicker of its light. Celia's large eyes shining, and a low chuckle of desire humming in her throat. At 5:30 the next morning, Celia woke them both in a panic, shoved Gus's coat at her and pushed her out into the hall. Above her, the building was groaning to life, steam hissing through the radiators, voices murmuring through the thin walls. A pale, flat light had settled on the porch, and Gus saw a young man leaning against the railing, a laborer smoking his morning pipe, who looked much worse for his night on the town. Her hair was plastered to her head, and she had a loopy grin that she couldn't wipe off her face. As she passed, he raised his chin to her, gave her a slow, deliberate toast with the bottle next to his boot. Good on you, brother, the gesture said. There's one more tiny section. They fell and fell hard into a space that wasn't supposed to exist, that neither of them knew existed. In that odd house of families and smells, of dark hallways and a once grand staircase that now went to closed doors, to long narrow rooms with high ceilings, they found a space. Celia's room became a refuge, a tiny boat in the darkness against what pressed in from outside. Their fights happened here, and so did the kisses in the half-darkness just past Celia's door. How many hours had Gus spent leaning against that door, hoping Celia would hear a soft knock, let her in, and Celia behind the door saying, "Go away, Gussie, I don't want to see you." How many times had Gus leaned against the door in tears? And how many other times had Celia waved her in resignation? You might as well come in. They leaned in the doorway for long minutes, just the soft pillow of lips meeting lips in the darkness. She fell into those kisses and kept falling. In the privacy and intimacy of Celia's world, Celia's room, a world opened. The world of their bodies, the world of each other, something that stood apart from time.
Tonight. Sherrie's going to set up some snacks that are a little to-go station, if you will. Because of COVID, we do want to be sure we're being safe. Because we know this is the time of year where people get sick. It's terrible. Take care of yourselves. Take care of your immune system. And take some snacks, whether you're writing or reading or just enjoying some time on the couch later. We hope you'll enjoy some snacks that we have for you today. Get signed up for the Quatrefoil Library. It is free. Sorry for stealing your remarks. Let me tell you people. The Libby app is amazing, and it works for both Hennepin County Library and for Quatrefoil. It sounds like you have more books you have access to. Did you hear all the noise that was happening when I said the Libby app is great?
We love Libby.
Libby's so good! It's the best thing that happened to me. I canceled my Audible subscription. I don't need to pay for this shit. But what you should do is pay for a True Voices book if you want one. Hey, they have that for sale. Donate to the libraries if you're interested. And then also remember that queer books do make good gifts. Support queer authors, right? Yeah. This is the time. Contact the writers directly, especially if they live locally. You might even get a little John Hancock out there. We love to see it. Okay. Say hello to each other, grab some food, grab some nosh, stay safe, be well, sign up for the email. I won't email you till next year. It'll be great. Much love. We love you guys. Thank you so much.
And yes, juice boxes.
The catch is you have to take this survey. Just saying, there's a survey.
What kid is that? Would you like to take a survey? You remember that? Does anyone? I will go crawl under the table. It's Friday.
Well, thank you, everybody, for being here tonight. And to me, like, what a profound reminder that artists, poets, and writers are the prophets, and always have been. And you bear witness to our world, and your lights reveal injustices along with paths forward towards a more beloved community where all belong and all are precious. And so thank you for being here, and thank you for your prophetic queer voices. They're needed now more than ever.